All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'd like to welcome you to the Salesforce Best Practices webinar, monthly webinars that we here at Salesforce do. And first off, my name is George Roney, and I am a senior engineer here at Salesforce. And we've decided to, with being consultants, working with a lot of different companies with Salesforce, we've decided to set up these webinars to give you some best practices on the basics of Salesforce, the stuff that we see as we log into different instances. And to keep things kind of even on the volume side, everybody is muted. You do have a chat window in your control panel for the GoToWebinar that you can use to send me a chat, and I will attempt to answer all questions. And as we go through the different sections, I will be asking if there's any questions during those. So please feel free to chat me a question, and I will be glad to answer it. Also, if the control panel is in your way, there's a little tab on the sidebar of that has a little orange button at the top that you can hide that sidebar. So with that, let's go ahead and start off with our presentation here. Our subject for today is best practices for Salesforce page layouts. So first off, why page layouts? Page layouts are what your users, or if you're not an administrator, if you're just a standard user, what you deal with on a daily basis when you're working with Salesforce. And so the object as an administrator is to make your life as easy as possible for your users, in which they in turn can get more benefit from Salesforce. And you as a user need to let your administrators know when and if something is not quite right, so that it can get resolved by the team and put in so that you can actually use the page to your best advantage. And we're going to go into some examples of that as we go along. So first off, we're going to be covering the creation of new custom fields. And so when you create the fields, when you create new fields, you do have the option to make it visible to all or some profiles during the creation process, assuming you're using Enterprise Edition or Unlimited or Developer Edition. And you also have the option to add it to the object's page layout right then and there. One thing I do want to let you know about that, when you do add it to the page layout, while you're creating it, the field is added as the last field in the first two-column section on the page layout. Long text area fields and user custom fields have a different place where they're going to go. But for the most part, if you add when you add a field to, say, like your lead or your contact object, it's always going to pop up at the last field on the left-hand side. So let's go ahead and actually take a look at that. So we'll go ahead and go into our demo org we have here. And when we create a new field, first off, say we have our test object here, and we want to maybe put another field on here. So what we would do is we would go into either our custom object and then fields, where this one is at, and create a new custom field here. Or for standard fields, you would go to the actual object like a lead or account, and then go into the fields here. And when you go into those fields, then you have your standard fields along the top, and then your custom fields along the bottom, and you would create it down here. So we're going to go ahead and create one on our test object here. We'll go ahead and create a new field. And so let's go ahead and say we'll go ahead and create a new number field. And so we can pick each different type of field we want. And then we always want to come to the bottom when we select next, because you may miss something. So you can select next up top, best practice. Always scroll down to the bottom because you may miss something, especially on smaller screens. So we'll go ahead and select next. And we'll just name this field number 2. So we have a choice. 18 digits is the total length of it. We can make it smaller, and we can then add decimal places. The two together can total up to 18. So if we made this 16, we were allowed 2 decimal places. You cannot have more than 18 digits total. And then we can also make it required. We can make it unique, or we can make it an external ID. So what these properties mean is if it's required here, it's going to be on every page layout that you have, and everybody will have to put a value in it to save a record. And this also affects your integration. So if this is a required field and you don't have it on a web-to-lead form, or if you're doing an upload, or even if it's on a contact and you don't have it mapped from a lead field, then you will run into errors because this is a universally required field. So it has to be on every page layout, and it's always going to be required. We're going to go into this in a little more detail when we get into the actual attributes on the page layout. Unique does not allow duplicate values. So when we make that unique, there can never be, if I put a number 1 in this field, no other record can have the number 1. External ID is used just like the Salesforce ID that Salesforce uses. You can actually use this as a primary key from another database. So if you're migrating from another database that has their own IDs, you can actually set this as a unique identifier as well. You can also set a default value. So I can put the number 1 in here, and any new record will always have the number 1 in here to start with. So let's go ahead and go next. And so here in Enterprise Edition, you get to decide what profiles you want to make it visible to. And if I were to make this a required field, then read-only would not be available to me. So I can make this visible to any or all profiles, and I can even turn it off for some. So maybe I don't want the read-only profile or the marketing user custom to even see this field. If I turn those off, they don't even know that field exists. When we click Next, it's going to ask me to put it on the page layout. Now, so here we go. If we put it on the page layout here, it's always going to show up at the bottom of the first 2-column list of fields. So one thing to be careful with here is if you do put it on there, it's instantly available to your users. So that means if you're creating 5 or 6 or 7 different new fields, they're all going to show up probably up at the top left underneath the account owner or the lead owner and up in that section. And they're all going to start showing up as your users are using these as they're entering records. So I've always found it's best not to put it on the page layout. That way I can actually put, when I'm done creating all my fields, then I can put them all on the page layout how I want and then save, and then it's available to my users. So let's go ahead and actually add this field just so we can see. So let's go ahead and save it. And now we'll go back to our test object here, and we'll go ahead and refresh it. And down here at the bottom, there's my new number 2 field. So if we just keep adding fields like that all along, as users go in and start editing records, they will find that they'll actually start seeing these fields show up here, which is probably not where you intend them to be. All right, so that covers the custom fields part. And so let's go on to organizing your page layout. So you basically, when organizing the layout, you want to be thinking of the people that are going to be using it. So you want to keep the most used fields closer to the top to eliminate scrolling by your users. And you want to use sections. Make them visible on the detail page, group your similar fields together so that the users can find those fields quickly and instruct them so how they can collapse and expand those sections. And then you want to always keep your similar fields in the general location across all objects for continuity. And so what I mean is like the object name, the lead name, the account name, the opportunity name. Put them in the same place, the upper left or something like that. The owner of the record, maybe on the upper right. But always keep those fields in the same general area all the way across so people don't have to go looking for the account name and find it down on the bottom left and the contact name is up on the top right. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of that. So back in our test object, as we talk about keeping the fields in the right place and everything, my test object here is one that, as you can see, is just kind of had everything all placed in just one place. And so all these different fields just kind of run right down one side. This makes it really hard to find anything. Where is the owner? Well, my owner is way down here in the middle. And where's the name of it? Let's see, there it is. There's my test object name right here. So this is going to be a very hard record to be able to work with for any length of time, especially if you have a bunch of them. If we go to maybe an account, we notice, normally your account owner is always going to be on the top, and then your account name and possibly your account site and your parent account. Then you start getting into some of the other, your standard fields up here, but then some custom fields and different locations. So this is a little more organized, but, maybe there's even some better organization we could do. Some of this other information, additional owner, probably doesn't need to be at the top. Google Map doesn't, primary address, some of this stuff can be moved down below and put into either an additional section or into the additional information section. You want to keep the main information here at the top. And so then you've also got your sections. So like my LinkedIn here section and my Zillow section, before I even get into my contacts, maybe I don't need this information all the time. As a user, I can collapse these sections. This just made my page a lot smaller. Now I can see edit at the bottom and edit at the top and everything in between. I don't ever, I rarely ever look at the system information, and I'm not really concerned about the address information. I really just work in this section right here. So now this is sticky. So basically if I go to a different account and go back to my Accounts tab, and then say go into a different account, all of those sections are still collapsed. So I can open them up as I need them, find that information, and then close it back up again. So these sections are really helpful for your users so that they can keep their page clean and so that they can easily find the stuff they're looking for. So we always want to keep, as much as possible, keep your fields even on the contact page. Additional information, other information. So keep that information separated so that it's easy to find. If you come back to our test object here, like I said, it's very hard to find this text-rich area. You can put in pictures. Very hard to find stuff. We see a lot of times where people will use the rich text field to put a picture of the contact. That's all fine, but be careful on that because it will expand to a full size. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger and takes up more space. So you may want to create a section for the picture and give your users the option to collapse that section. All right, so let's go ahead and move on. Do we have any questions so far on the page layouts and the sections, organizing and adding fields? All right, well, I don't see any chats coming in, so let's go ahead and move on then. So the field properties. When you actually go in and start editing the page layout, you do have the option to make certain fields required or read-only on that page layout. As we looked before when we created the number field on the test object, you can make it universally required. That means everybody required, it's on every page layout, and it will affect your integration. If you make it only required on the page layout, it is not actually fully required. And So by doing that, you can actually bypass that required field. Say like importing leads, and you make the, you have like the, I believe it's the rating field, that's a standard field. You make that required on the page layout, or even the account industry field. That's a real good one. The lead and the industry and account industry fields. I've seen a lot of people make them required. They import leads, and that field is empty. That's because you're only making it required on the page layout. It's not a universally required field. So when you import leads, if you don't map to that industry field, you can still create all those leads. It's not required until you actually edit that lead. Then you have to put an industry in. And with the universal fields, those are fully required. You would actually get an error, and the import would not work if you did not map to that industry field and populated it. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of that, the field properties. And so as we go into our test object here, we can actually go in and edit the page layout. So there's a couple different ways that you can edit the page layouts. Salesforce for administrators has made it real easy that all you have to do is go up and click Edit Layout. Let's actually go into our account page, and we'll edit its layout. So we can edit the layout from here, or we can go into Setup, and from Setup we can go to the object we want, and then Page Layouts this way. So now we have multiple page layouts, and we're not sure what layout maybe we were looking at. So that's the handy part about working at it from the record itself as an administrator. You can go right to the Edit Layout button, and when you come into this, you know what layout you're using. So there's all my different layouts, and so I know right there which layout I'm using. So now I can come down here and say I do want to make, let's see, I want to make my account number required. So when you hover over your field, you'll see that you have a minus to remove and a wrench, or you can just double click it, and then you can make it either read-only or required. Now this is for this page layout only. So when we click OK, it's required on this page layout. And instead of clicking Save, when you click Save, you're going to actually be brought back to the record. But I want to make changes on my other page layouts as well. So I'll do a quick save. And now I can actually, from there, come back up to the top and change to my contractor layout. So now I'm on my contractor layout. There's my account number. It's not required. So it's only required on the account layout, not the contractor layout. So you want to be careful with that. You can't actually make it all required at one time. And if I were to move the account number, say over here, and I wanted that to be on all page layouts, I would then have to quick save and then go back to my other layout and do that again. So it's still over here. It's per page, so each page gets edited differently. So when you are setting these up, be aware that you will have to, if you have more than one page layout, you will have to go into each one. And a quick way to do that is, like I said, the quick save, and then jump over to the next layout. Instead of, if I just click save, it either brings me back to the record, or it brings me back over here to the page layouts again, and I have to start over. All right, so those were our field properties. Any questions on those? You'll notice there are some other icons here. You have a star icon, a red icon, that makes the field required, and a blue dot means it's always on the layout. So that's either a Salesforce configuration, or you do have a master detail or universally required field that's always going to be on the layout. So I cannot remove parent account. It will not allow me. The lock means it's a formula field and cannot be edited. And so these fields are actually either read-only or they cannot be edited. And so those, like your system, obviously you're created by, your last modified by, you cannot edit those. You can actually remove those from the page layout though. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to our next subject here, from the field properties to the related lists. So you want to place your most used related list at the top, least used at the bottom. And so then it makes it just that much easier to find the data you're looking for. And you can also show your users how to use the hover links, especially on mobile computers, laptops. Makes it really nice using those hover links, and we'll go into those in a minute. Use the related list editor when available to organize the columns displayed and your sort order. And for related lists that are like on multiple objects, activity related lists, for example, the activity history or open activities, try to keep them in the same general area on all your different objects so they're easy to find. People know right where they're at. They're either the first or the second down the list. They know exactly where they're at. And you can have up to 10 columns in your related list, so set them up to the best advantage for your users. So let's go ahead and take a look at that while we're editing this page layout here. So we've got all these different related lists down here. We've got our contact roles, our contacts, open activities, activity history, all these different related lists. You may not need them for all users. So first off, you can use this to just drag them around and move them wherever you like. And so we generally want to keep our activities across all objects around the same place. Underneath the account, yes, your contacts usually come first, and then your activities, activity history. Some of these can be edited and some cannot. You'll notice that the contact roles, this is not customizable. Others are. So like the opportunities. I see my opportunity name, my stage, my amount, and my close date. Well, maybe I want to add some more stuff to it. So I can click the wrench, and I can add maybe a created date, and maybe I want my fiscal period in here as well. So I can add those. I can move them around. So I want my created date before my close date, and the fiscal period can stay where it's at. I can also sort by any of these fields that I've just put on here. So I actually want to sort by my created date. I want to know when these things were created first at the top, not the close date. And I want the newest one, so I want to go descending. I want my newest one at the top, my oldest at the bottom. I do have the option to apply this to the other layouts. So at one time here, instead of with the fields where I couldn't, I had to move each field independently. Here I can actually apply all of these changes to all the other layouts that are in the system on my account page. Then we also have the buttons that are on that, and right now there's only a new button. If you had other buttons, those would show up here. So let's go ahead and click OK, and it now adds those fields in here. So there's my created date, and I'm sorting by created date going down. I can then, like I said, move this around, put it wherever I want, and when you get into some of these, you will not be able to sort your open activities. Click into that. You can apply the information to all the different ones, but there is no sort button. This is default sorted by Salesforce. So you don't have a default sort button on this unless you were to overwrite this with a Visualforce page. So some will have a sort, some will not. And then, like I said, you can have up to 10 columns running across your related lists. Now, when you save this, it's going to ask you, since you've changed your related list, do you want these changes to override the user's personal related list customizations? Each user can customize their own related list for each object. If you want this to be visible to all, you'll overwrite. So if people had, say, the opportunity object or the opportunity related list hidden on their account page layout, by clicking yes, we'll override that and put it back on their page layout. If you click no, then the users, if they do go in and have, say they have the opportunity page layout or the related list on their layout, but it's in a different place because users can modify their own, then they will still see the new fields but if they have chosen to hide related lists, they would not. So we're going to go ahead and say yes, and now all users will see that. Once we save, we come back to our account because we clicked Edit from the account. All right, any questions so far? It doesn't look like it, so let's go ahead and move on. So let me get that back up here. And so those are our related lists. And next up is the mini page layout. This is one that I see does not get used very often. The mini page layout works with the console, and this is just the standard console, not the service console that comes with the Service Cloud licenses. It also works with the hover details and event overlays. So you want to keep your field selection to a minimum in here, and let me show you where this mini page layout lives. So if we're on the contact, and I want to see the account, a lot of times when I log in, I see just this information. We see the account name, parent account number. That's about it. That's all we're seeing here. You can actually customize this little page to see more detail. So this is just like a hover link. Your hover links, as I was explaining earlier for laptop users, people that have small screens, instead of scrolling down to all of your different related lists down here, you can actually use these hover links to see those same records. And you can actually click right into any of these records from these hover links. So you really never have to scroll. If your page setup is set where the two edit buttons are in the same place and you can see both edits, you really never have to scroll because all of your information is all right here along the top. So you can see all of that just by popping right in, and you can even click the new button right from the hover link, so you don't even have to scroll down and hit that. For the hover links here, we would want to go back to the account page and edit it again. Only this time, we're going to go up and edit the mini page layout. So that's up here in the top in the blue. And so those are the fields that are here. We have the account name, the parent account, and the account number. You know, I also want maybe the account site. Really need to know that information. And I'd like to know the billing address. So any fields that you put here are going to show up in that little hover link passing back through. The related lists, in turn, work for your console. So if you have your Salesforce console set up, then these would be in the far right mini pane of the console, and they'll always be in the same order that is on your page layout itself. So maybe I also want that phone over there. Let's bring that in. So when I save the mini page layout and now save the account layout, I can go back to my contact and refresh my contact. And now when I hover over my account name, now I see all my other information. There's my billing address, there's my billing phone number, or my phone number. So use this to your advantage. Whenever you have a link back and forth, definitely use that to your advantage. This also works on the opportunity page. For opportunities associated with accounts, you can hover over the account and see that same information. So definitely use that to your advantage. Don't make it too long, but you definitely want to give your users the best information without having them having to scroll or link back, click into that account to find this information. The most used information should be right here, easy to get to. Any questions on the mini page layout? All right. Well, looks like sounds like everything's going fairly smoothly. So let's move on to our next subject here. After the mini page layout, we have just some layout tips. And so you can use the page layout assignment button for enterprise or above to easily see which layouts are used by each profile, and if you have record types as well. When you need to edit multiple page layouts for the same object, you can use the Quick Save, which is what I showed you earlier, and the Layout Switcher to change between the layouts. Well, you can also preview as, to preview as different users to see what it's going to look like. And so let's go ahead and go back into the page here. And so what we're going to do is we'll actually go the other route to view or edit this page layout. So we'll go into Setup, and we're going to edit the account layouts. So we'll go to Account and then Page Layouts. For Professional Edition, this brings you right to the page layout in the edit mode. But because we have multiple page layouts here, I need to know what profiles see those. So I can use the page layout assignment, and along the top are my different record types, and then the page layouts inside for those record types. And so my partner layout sees all the partners. Facilities see it all except for my partners. So my partner users actually see the partner layout all the way across. So you do have the option to change all this. So we can make the account layout strictly the system administrator always sees the account layout all the way across by editing this. And we also have a couple more here. So if you don't see your record type, there's always a button over here to bring you to the rest of the record types. And so I want the system administrator, actually I want my standard user to see the same layout all the way across. So I will select my account layout for my standard user. Now the standard user sees all those layouts, and so those have been changed. But you know what? My storage, I want everybody in storage to see the storage layout. So now I've just made that change. So you can change it both ways. You can either change a mass change straight across. You can also do a mass change straight up and down. You can also do a single individual change. So my Force.com one app user, I want them to see the contractor layout here. So you really can change this to any type of setting that you like. And when you switch back and forth, your changes are still saved. So you haven't lost them yet unless you click Cancel up above. So if you're using multiple record types, multiple page layouts, make sure you've got them all set. I can't tell you how many times I've logged into an account to have multiple page layouts, and the system administrator doesn't even know what they are. So the first place I'll come into is the page layout assignment to find out that they're only using one. The other two layouts are not even being used. Okay, and I think I had a question here. And let's see. Oh, you're quite welcome. Yeah, I'm glad I could share that with you. Yeah, this is one thing I see quite often as I work to help other customers. I log into their instance. The first thing they'll do is, okay, we need to make a page change here to add a field or something. So I'll go in and I'll look at their page layouts. And as soon as I look at their layouts, I see that, wow, you've got all these different layouts, but which one goes to where? So a lot of times I'll come in here to find out that they won't have a record type, so it'll just be one here, and they're all just using one layout. So as a best practice, if you're doing that, maybe you're using those others for testing or whatever purposes, you can actually, the layouts that you're not using, you can actually rename those. So you can go in, you can edit the layout, you can use the edit layout properties, and you may, go in and put parentheses around it and not used. So now you know when you come back in later that it's not actually being used. So now I can see at a glance it's not being used. Maybe we're just using that one, but I'm using this for test purposes. So use that to your advantage so you don't have to always come back in and go, which one am I using? Especially if you have quite a few and you're doing a bunch of testing. All right. Also, the Preview As, very handy tool. So if we go into Edit, we've made all our changes. So we've modified everything, we've moved it all around, and we like how it goes, but I'm not sure exactly how the marketing user is going to see this, because the marketing user may have some fields that are not visible to them. You can go use that Preview As button. Now I can view it as any profile in the system. So we'll take a look at our marketing user custom. And so now I can see from that marketing user custom what their page layout is going to look like. And so I can do the same with any profile in here. I can pick any profile in here to see what it's going to look like from their point of view. Very, very handy tool when you're making multiple changes across the different page layouts. All right, so we'll go ahead and save that. And do we have any other questions? All right, so we've covered our tips here. I would like to show you how to engage with Salesforce. You can sign up for a free Salesforce assessment at info.starforce.com/Salesforce assessment. You can also follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and read our blog at starforce.com/cloudthink. So we do have a few minutes here. And is there any questions on anything that I have covered today? We have an open Q&A. Any questions that you would like answered on page layouts or fields? And you can use the chat button. There is a chat function to send me a question. And you can also, there's a little button to raise your hand if you like as well. All right, well, if there's not any more questions, then looks like we get to end a little early today. So I do thank you for your time, and we go into our Q&A. Looks like we've had our Q&A already, so we don't need to go there. And I would like to show you that next month's webinar, we will be doing the best practice for the home page layout. That is a completely different critter. With its own custom links, its own sidebar, how to set up your dashboards for it. And so if you do, are you interested in the best practices on the homepage layouts, please feel free to join us and sign up for our webinar next month. If we don't have any other questions then, I'm going to go ahead and end the presentation. All right. Well, I thank you for your time. I thank you for joining us, and you guys have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you back next month. And the presentation will now end. Thank you. Bye-bye.